Hello and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Devin Burke is an international and TEDx speaker as one of the top health and sleep coaches in the world. His content has inspired thousands of people to improve their sleep, energy, and life. Devin is the best-selling author of the book, The Sleep Advantage: Optimize Your Night to Win Your Day. He is the founder of Sleep Science Academy, and he hosts the fantastic podcast, Sleep Better with Devin Burke, which he started this year, 2021. He has been named one of the top 25 health coaches in America. Devin loves helping high achievers and exhausted insomniacs get and stay asleep so they can awaken to more peace, power, and presence. Devin Burke, it's an honor to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
Thanks for having me, Casey. I'm excited to be here and talk sleep with you.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Are you going to be offended if I fall asleep during this conversation?
Actually, you know what? I would not be offended. I would applaud you for falling asleep.
Well, luckily, I mean, I've heard enough of your content. I know how dynamic you are, so I don't think we're at risk of me falling asleep.
Well, if you do, it's okay. So just know that, I'll try my best not to put you to sleep right now, but hopefully some of the tools that I'll share will help you sleep better. Just
Perfect.
Maybe not on the podcast.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit later. That's great. So you are technically a sleep coach. I played on a bunch of sports teams. I know how coaches work. If I hire you, do you show up at my house, at 10 p.m., I've got my pajamas on, you stand over the bed and you yell at me, sleep better, or, sleep on your back. Is that part of what you do?
So it's a little bit like that, only more like, the little angel that sits on people's shoulders and whispers, I'm kind of like that, only for sleep. And definitely not going to come to your bed or bedroom. And, that's not something we do, but metaphorically, we do like to get in people's minds and give them the tools to sleep better. Just like a football coach would, I guess, only just not there by the bedside.
Not on the sidelines. Well, we are so looking forward to getting into some of those tricks and tools and techniques that you can help teach us. We'd love to hear your story. How did something that seems so passive and almost like a waste of time to most people become such an interest to you?
Yeah, honestly, I used to think it was a waste of time. And I really didn't know that much about sleep. I just like most people, I thought it was a waste of time. I slept pretty good. I didn't ever had a sleep problem. A lot of people ask me that, oh, you must have had a really bad sleep problem. I said, no, actually a client of mine was having issues. I used to work exclusively with very high performing entrepreneurs, and somebody was, that I was coaching at the time. This is about 4 years ago. I said, hey, I know you know a lot about health, you know a lot about mindfulness and psychology and all these other things. Do you know anything about sleep? And I didn't. And I was like, honestly, I don't, but let me look into it. And so the more I looked into it, the more I realized, oh my gosh, this is not only is this a huge problem for so many people, but it's the foundation of health. And there's so much that goes on during the night that actually impacts our day. And so that really kind of piqued my interest. And then the more I looked into, the solutions that were available for people as far as, prescription medication or, traditional CBTI programs, the more I realized, wow, there's a real big need and a real big opportunity to serve people in a big way. And that's when I really dove headfirst into learning sleep science and pulling all the other modalities and mind-body technologies that I had been studying over like a decade together to really serve people.
That's so interesting. So you said you personally didn't have a sleep problem, but as you were learning some of this stuff, in hindsight, would you go back and say like, yeah, I was way below optimal as far as your own sleep quality?
Yeah, actually, yeah. So one of the big things that people don't realize, we can't manage what we don't measure. And so before, I wasn't managing sleep. I wasn't tracking it. There wasn't a way really, a good way, at least that I knew of, to really do that. I didn't really see the value in it. And so it wasn't something that I focused on. I focused, a lot on nutrition. I focused a lot on, exercise, and I would measure and track those two important aspects of health. But sleep was not something that I tracked or really looked at. And once I really started to understand the science of it and started to implement some of the techniques and tools that I was learning about and actually track my sleep and see, oh, wow, okay, there's a big difference when you get, 20% total deep sleep time or 25% REM sleep. I feel more focused. I feel more clear. I feel more rested. I feel less inflamed. So yeah, it was definitely I didn't know that. I thought I was a good sleeper. And honestly, my family used to have this joke. They used to call me narco, short for narcoleptic, because I could sleep anywhere. But not until I really started to track my sleep and measure the quality of my sleep that I realized, wow, there's another level. Like you can really optimize that 1/3 of your life that you spend in bed to make the other 2/3 better. And so that's really, it got me excited about it. Because we're in bed for 1/3 of our lives. So why not try to make that 1/3 help the 2/3 when you're actually awake? It's not wasted time. It can be actually time to really make the other 2/3 incredible.
Yeah, that's great. I'm so glad you talked about some of the benefits that you noticed in your wakeful life. And I think most people, again, they think sleep is so passive, but there's a lot of activity that happens when we sleep. Can you tell us a little bit about what is going on as we're sleeping?
Yeah. So each night we go through several different stages of sleep. And so there's essentially a sleep cycle. You go through, well, depending on if you're going with the old definitions or the new definitions, I like to keep it super simple. There's, light sleep, deep sleep, and REM sleep. So, and that's essentially, there's these different stages of, you go through these cycles every 90 minutes. Right. And so when you drop into deep sleep or delta sleep, that's when your body is really recovering. That's when your testosterone is being released, growth hormones being released. That's when, the lymphatic system, it's the lymph system in the brain. Your brain kind of shrinks and this, fluid washes over your brain, removing beta amyloid, and the plaque that builds up causes Alzheimer's. So much is happening during deep sleep. You can think of delta deep sleep as restorative body sleep. That's like the money sleep for recovery physically. And then REM sleep, or rapid eye movement, that is dream sleep. And that's when, we're coming up with new creative ideas. That's when we're processing, the emotions that were undealt with throughout the day. That's when short-term memory gets shuttled to long-term storage. So there's a lot going on in these different stages. But essentially, we're coming in and out of these stages every 90 minutes. In some cases, you might come actually completely out of a cycle and you wake up. Sometimes people wake up and they're not conscious, but actually if you are awake, you kind of pop out of that sleep cycle. But if we're doing it right, you're getting around 4 to 5 cycles each night. And the first half of your night is really when you get the most delta deep sleep. And that's really from the hours of like 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning. And so if you look at like your sleep like a football game, if you would, the first quarter of the night, that's when you get really good deep sleep. That's when your body, to initiate sleep, our bodies need to drop between 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit to initiate sleep. And then our bodies go into this deeper, juicy delta wave sleep. And that's, again, body recovery. And then as we go throughout the night, we're coming in and out of these cycles. And then the last quarter, the fourth quarter of the night, that's when we get most of our REM sleep. And that's why when you wake up, you usually remember, well, sometimes you remember your dreams, but that's dream sleep. And that's really important for the mind and the emotions. And unfortunately, most people they do the wrong things and that cut into the delta sleep. And then they don't allow themselves enough time to actually get in enough of that REM sleep. And so, but again, throughout the night, we're kind of dancing. We call this sleep architecture, your unique sleep architecture. We're dancing in and out of these different brainwave states and these different cycles.
That is a lot going on when we think we're just, hanging out, not really doing anything. It's amazing what the brain and the body is doing while you are sleeping. I think it's so interesting. You mentioned the cycles. That's something I've learned about. The 90-minute cycles, is it better for some people to get 7.5 hours of sleep versus like a standard recommendation of like 8 hours of sleep? I think we tell everybody ubiquitously, like, you need 8 hours, but if that doesn't match up with a pattern or has somebody like waking up in the middle of a cycle, is that worse?
So it's actually 8 hours is a myth.
That's
it
what
really
I
is.
thought.
So yeah, it is. So people, some people 7 hours is fantastic for them. Some people actually need 9 hours, but our sleep, how much sleep we need kind of changes depending on our age, depending on our activity level. There's so many factors there, depending on the demands we're putting on our bodies, the stress loads. So it really, everyone kind of has their own unique chronobiology, if you will. And so that's partly genetic. Again, that's partly your lifestyle, your age. There's a lot of factors into how much sleep. And definitely when you wake, a lot of times people wake up in the wrong cycle of sleep because they're waking up with an alarm clock, and then they're in like a deeper stage of sleep, and they wake up and they're all groggy. It's because you're not allowing your body to kind of naturally wake up. So that can happen too. But as far as 8 hours, that's kind of just in between 7 and 9, right? So it's 8. But yeah, no, some people can, and there's actually really, really interesting. I was just reading this article on, I think it was Apple or one of the, maybe it's NBC. I'm not sure, but it was on an article on people that have this genetic, mutation that allows them to actually get less sleep, and it doesn't have any health ramifications. And they need about 4 or 5 hours of sleep, and they wake up and they feel amazing. They feel refreshed, and there's no health ramifications. A lot of people wish they had that gene. I believe it's called the DECA2 gene. But unfortunately, that's like less than 1% of the entire population that has that.
Yeah, that's certainly not me. I don't know if it's you or not, but that's definitely not me.
It's definitely not me. No, I'm like an 8-hour guy, 8.5-hour guy. I need sleep. I need a lot of sleep.
That's great. So you mentioned, the optimal time that we should be asleep. How do we know? Like, how do I know that I'm getting enough sleep? You've already mentioned a tracker. Like, do we need trackers to tell us that? Or is it more of like a feel thing? If I'm tired, I should have slept more.
Yeah, that's something that you really got to personally experiment with. Just like there's not like one right way of eating. There's, different diets that work for different people depending on their goals and their lifestyle. So you really do got to experiment with when the best time to go to bed is. There are ways of figuring out what your chronotype is. Dr. Michael Bruce, he wrote a book called, what's the name of the book? Gosh, I'm losing the name of the book, but the book he wrote was essentially how there's many different types of chronotypes, which essentially is like your unique sleep architecture. Like, when is the best time for you to go to bed based off of your genes, your genetic, clock. And so in the old sort of school way of figuring out, most people is like, oh, I'm a night owl or morning lark. But there's actually a few other chronotypes. It's called an MEQ test that you can take. You can find them online, and that kind of gives you an idea of, okay, based off of your answers, most likely you're a night owl or you're a morning lark, and that would kind of give you a sort of, I guess, a pointing you in the right direction for where to start with when to go to bed. But ultimately, your body's intelligent. It really, if you're in tune with your body, if you're doing the right things and your natural rhythms are synced up, you're going to get sleepy when it's time for you to sleep, and you're going to sleep as long as you need to sleep and then wake up. It's really, we tend to overcomplicate it, I think.
Yeah. Wow. So it's really just paying attention to the body, noticing how you're feeling. Do you recommend a sleep tracker or not necessarily?
Yeah. I mean, so the way that I look at, I put people in different buckets. And so there's the big bucket of people that don't prioritize and protect sleep because they don't know how important it is. That's like most people, I would say. Then there's people that have chronic insomnia. And then there's, on the other side of that spectrum, there's like high performers, like, we're talking like LeBron James or, Jeff Bezos, or like, elite athletes and business minds. And so I think that there's value across the board in measuring and tracking sleep. The only danger kind of bucket, I would say, when people get into measuring and tracking their sleep is a chronic insomnia bucket, if they don't have the proper support or the tools. But every other bucket would be, that large bucket where people are not prioritizing and protect their sleep. They realize, oh my gosh, like, yes, this is important. Yes, they're measuring it, so they're paying attention to it, and they're able to kind of see when they do the right things that help them get better sleep, how that impacts their day. So there's value there. And for the high performers, those are the guys that are, biohacking, and they're testing different diets, and they're testing different mattresses and beds, and, they're doing all this, the biohacking stuff. And then obviously you can see the impact on, how that's having on your quality of sleep, and how that's impacting your decision-making, your energy levels, your ability to recover. So long-winded answer. I think tracking is extremely beneficial. The only caveat there is for people that have chronic insomnia that don't have the proper support.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I really like that. My old company, we got into like selling devices. So first it was like a heart rate monitor, then it was three, and then it was three different brands, and then it was like everything. We would sell all kinds of special alarm clocks. We sold Blendtec blenders at one point, just crazy amount of like products that we were trying to sell. And one of them was a sleep tracker, and it would go over your forehead. Like you'd have to wear this strap over your head on your forehead. And like most nights, maybe it was a good tracker, but most nights it ended up like by my feet somehow, inexplicably. I think the technology has come a long way since then. It was probably a decade ago, but yeah, that's a really good and thoughtful answer. I really appreciate that. You mentioned bedding. I really was curious to ask you about that. Is there a certain type of bedding that works best, or is it really just kind of a guess and check thing?
Yeah, I mean, I like latex-based mattresses just because they're a little bit cooler than like the Tempur-Pedic sort of foam-based mattresses. But the mattress tech is like insane. There's so many amazing mattresses out right now. It's a very competitive market, and they all kind of have their unique sort of element to them. But really, what's important is that you think it's comfortable. That's the most important thing, and everyone kind of has a different idea of soft, firm. But one of the big things I think that is important with the mattress is making sure it's not trapping heat, because temperature is a big factor when we're talking about sleep quality. And so I sleep on a city mattress. It's called a Prana Sleep Vinyasa, and it's a latex-based mattress. It's medium firm, so it's not too soft, and I sleep amazing on it. I love it. And but there's so many different mattresses out there, and depending on what your budget is. I mean, Casey, there are mattresses that they literally are $400,000 mattresses. Like that's not a joke. It's so that's, you can spend as much or as little on a mattress, but I always like to say it's the best piece of furniture in your home, so you should invest in a good one. And you're on it again for a third of your life. You spend a lot of time in bed, so make sure that you get like a high quality mattress that's supportive and there's a ton of different mattresses out there. I could talk mattresses for days, but at the end of the day, it has to just be comfortable for you.
Be comfortable. Wow, that's awesome. $400,000. That's crazy. What is that made of?
Yeah, I maybe they have gold in the sheets. I in the threads. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But I don't know how many of those they're selling a year, but yeah, that's a bit intense.
Wow.
There was a cool mattress I can share about that. I just stayed at this wellness resort in Miami called the Carolyn, and they have this really cool bed. It's a high-tech bed. It's called a Bright Bed. And it actually, each spring sort of dynamically adjusts based off of your body pressure. And it heats up and it cools down throughout the night to kind of drop you into deeper stages of sleep. It has this amazing sort of wave-like feature where kind of like your whole body kind of feels like you're on the ocean, and it kind of puts you to sleep and it wakes. It's really neat. So the mattress tech is just getting insane out. There's really some really cool things coming out.
That's amazing. That's super cool. I'm so glad you mentioned temperature. I think that's really important that a lot of people are not aware of. Can you tell us a little bit about why we are looking for kind of a cool temperature, and what range maybe that temperature should be?
Yeah, so the ideal temperature in a bedroom should be between 65 and 69 degrees. So that's pretty cold. And the reason is because like I mentioned before, in order to actually drop into sleep, our body temperature needs to drop 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit. And then to get into delta deep sleep, our temperature is going to continue to drop. So what we've found is that when you have warm environments, you don't get as much deep sleep. And so there's amazing like devices out there like the Chili Pad or the Bed Jet, or the Chili Pad now has this mattress sort of cover on it. But it's really, you can just take a hot shower or warm bath, and that's going to drop your body temperature down. But body temperature actually plays a huge role in not only the initiation of sleep, but the quality of sleep throughout the night.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't think a lot of people would consider that, like a warm temperature, bath, like you said, like that can be like a really soothing thing. And I guess I didn't really realize that would cool your body down, but it makes sense. We've talked a little bit about what to sleep on. Is there a certain position we should be thinking about and trying to train our bodies to sleep in that's better than another?
Yeah, depending on who you ask, they're going to have different answers. But so some people say the back, and then some people say on your side. And so if you're a back sleeper, and so the downsides of back sleeping is sometimes it can close put the throat in a position where you snore. Okay. So that's not good, right? So we don't want that. Side sleeping though can kind of, it can cramp up your shoulder. And if you don't have a pillow between your legs, it can kind of do some wonky stuff to your hips. But it all, again, depends on the type of mattress you have. But really, the one position that you want to try to avoid sleeping in is on your stomach. And it's just because posturally, it's just not a good position to be in.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's really helpful. I'm so glad you mentioned breathing. You were just giving me the best segues for my questions, man. This is great. Do you work with people on proper breathing? Because that seems to be a huge area of concern and a huge problem for most people.
Yeah, I mean, breathing, really, if you look at it, breathing is like the most foundational thing for life. After that, it's water. After that, it's sleep. Then it's food. Then it's exercise. And so proper breathing, making sure that you're getting enough oxygen, making sure that the oxygen you're getting is not, filled with toxins and things that are floating around in your bedroom from like the paint on the walls and the off-gassing of your furniture and all that. It's really important to have high quality air, and it's really important to breathe through your nose. So a lot of people are mouth breathers, and there's a whole book on this. I don't know if you've read it, Breathe, the author of
James Nestor.
The author. That's right.
Yeah, we hosted him a few months ago. He's great.
Amazing. So so all about the importance of nasal breathing and probably mouth taping. But yeah, breathing, breathing's incredible. Also, for just managing stress. So when you're able to connect to the breath and sort of start to use some of these breath tools, it can just put you in that parasympathetic rest state, which is so important to get good quality sleep. And so we're big believers in giving people tools to understand the breath and work with the breath and breathe properly, back down in the diaphragm so that they can restore their bodies.
Yeah, I love that. In preparation for that interview with James, I had done mouth taping a little bit from time to time and just wasn't very diligent about it. And I just decided, like, you know what, I'm gonna just do this every night. So placing just a small piece of tape over the lips to kind of train the mouth to stay closed and train the nose to breathe properly. It's amazing the difference it makes, not only for sleep, like I stopped snoring altogether, but you're right, like I wake up so much more relaxed. It carries over into things like exercise and performance where I can nose breathe at such a higher intensity than I used to be able to. It's really amazing to focus on that and see those benefits leak out into the rest of your life. Is that something you notice as well?
Absolutely. But I got to tell you, the first time that you put some tape on your mouth, your bed partner is going to be, you better warn them, because I walked into my bedroom the first time I had this mouth tape on. My wife looked at me. She just started shaking her. She said, "What the hell are you doing?" I was like, "Babe, this is," she's seen me do a lot of, crazy experiments for my own personal sleep. But that was definitely the one she was like, "I don't know if we're going to be doing this every night." I said, "Okay, all right, well, let me, let's tape your mouth shut, and then we'll decide that together."
That's great.
So yeah, no, she's on board now.
That's funny. Yeah. I mean, at least she didn't ask you to tape your mouth during the day.
Yeah, you're right. That would be a lot worse.
Yeah, that's great. Also in that book, Breath, there's a part in the very beginning where he does an experiment where he actually does the opposite of mouth taping. Essentially, they close the nasal cavity up so that he's basically forced to mouth breathe for 2 full weeks. I think the experiment was. Do you remember reading that?
I actually have it on my shelf. I haven't read it. I got to be honest. I haven't read it.
You're gonna love. Yeah, you're going to love it. This part is crazy. Like 2 weeks of no nose breathing whatsoever. And boy, like they recorded how much time they were snoring, which was insane. Like he had all kinds of headaches and weird physical manifestations happening. It's pretty shocking to know that most people, that's how they spend their nights. That's how they spend also their days, but that's how they sleep, and the snoring and the sleep apnea. I mean, so many problems from mouth breathing that can be solved with proper nose breathing.
Yeah, and it's such a simple thing. It really is. It's not rocket science, and it makes perfect sense. And for people that are brave enough to experiment with it, and you will notice a difference. I mean, it's pretty dramatic. And eventually you don't need to use the tape anymore. Your body, I find, at least for myself, learns to sort of do it naturally. It just takes a couple of weeks to kind of, get that the nose remembering to breathe.
Yeah, totally. No, if I miss a night, which I rarely do, but if I miss, I don't go back to mouth breathing. It's been enough time. You really have to dedicate yourself in the beginning, kind of get used to the practice. What do we know about sleep apnea? That seems to be a problem that's on the rise. How do we know the causes of sleep apnea and why so many more people are being treated with it?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the main reason most people have sleep apnea is they're overweight.
Wait, yeah.
Um, yeah, they're just they're eating the wrong foods. They're not taking care of themselves. They're carrying around a lot of extra weight. I'll never forget. I was given a seminar here in Florida, and we were at this part where I asked people to share about their experience and things like that. And this guy stood up and he told me this story, and it was hilarious. But he was like, "Yeah, I used to be on all kinds of medication. I had a CPAP, um, and he was overweight. And his wife one day just looked at him and said, you just need to freaking lose weight." And so he finally decided, okay, like I need to change my lifestyle, changed his lifestyle, it was like 20 or 30 pounds that he was carrying around his body, and no need for a CPAP, no need for blood pressure medication, like totally just got off of everything. And so for most people, I mean, there are obstructive sleep apnea, right? So it's like a jaw thing, or just the way that your mouth is designed, or a neurological thing that goes on where you stop breathing. But for most people, honestly, it's just because they're overweight. So if they would just focus a little bit more on taking better care of themselves, lose that weight, they're not going to need the CPAP, and they're going to feel so much better.
Man, I mean, we just see that kind of stuff all the time where you pull one lever to move in a healthier direction, and all of a sudden you see benefits in so many other places in your life that you weren't even expecting. So yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that. A lot of people are also using either supplements or drugs to go to sleep. I mean, I guess a really common one would be melatonin. Is that something you recommend that people take?
I don't, unless they're taking it for jet lag. And the reason is because your body naturally produces melatonin, and it's a hormone. It's actually regulated in the European Union, like meaning you cannot go to a store and buy melatonin without a prescription. But here in the US, it's like, you can just, almost all the supplements with herbal supplements and all kinds of things have melatonin in it, but it's a hormone. So, it would be like just popping testosterone or something. So I'm not a big fan of it. I think there is a time and a place for it, in small amounts and in the right ways. But I think for most people, it's a crutch, it's a Band-Aid, and it can potentially be dangerous if you're taking too much of it. And a lot of times also there was a really interesting study done that found that most of the supplements with melatonin in it are just, the range is off. Like they might say 5 milligrams on the bottle, but it ends up being like 400 times that amount, or yeah. So, so the supplement industry is unregulated. And so it can be a little bit hit or miss. But I'm not a huge fan of melatonin. Some people are, but for me, just what I've read and my understanding of it, that's kind of my position on it, at least for now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I get the feeling that since it's a hormone, if you start taking it exogenously outside of your body, I wonder whether your body would just start down regulating its own production of it. Is that something that could maybe happen?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know if there's really that much research and science on that, but it makes logical sense to me. Yeah. And I wouldn't be wanting to roll the dice. Right. So why don't you just, like the way that I see it is, why don't you do the things that would help your body naturally produce the melatonin versus, taking it, like you said, exogenously to try to make you sleepy.
Yeah. I mean, before we jump into other supplements, let's dive into that. What things can we do to help our bodies make melatonin? Which, if I remember correctly, I think it was Sean Stevenson, who wrote a book about sleep that taught me this, that melatonin is like your get good sleep hormone is kind of how he defines it. So is that how you look at it? And if so, like what things can we do to boost our natural production of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great book. I love his book. It's super tangible. So I would start with what things not to do. So one of the biggest things that people do, and it's challenging not to do, it's get away from technology at night. The blue light from our iPads and our cell phones and our TVs, that tricks the body into thinking that the sun's still up. And really the melatonin faucet gets turned on when the sun starts to set. And so with all this light, our bodies just get confused and that melatonin faucet doesn't fully turn on. And so that's a problem, right? So first and foremost, if you can, start to turn off half your lights as the sun starts to set, start to make your home kind of dimmer temperature, dimmer light wise, and actually make it cooler as the night gets closer, that would actually help you induce more melatonin and make you feel more sleepy. Also, getting up and getting the sun first thing in the morning, that's really important to reset your circadian clock. Is get some sunlight. Like when you wake up, go and get the blue light. First thing in the morning. It's really important and powerful to just get outside, breathe some fresh air, get some sun on your skin. That helps keep your cycles regular. There's some foods that you can eat, like tart cherry juice is very high in melatonin. I believe kiwis. There was an interesting study done in Taiwan on kiwis and sleep and melatonin. But really, it's the more you can just get back to nature. Your body's incredibly intelligent. It knows what to do, when to do it. It's just we need to just get back to nature, and that means.
Yeah, I love that so much. I could not agree more. I'm so glad you mentioned getting outside. It's like we've got this thing against blue light, but if I'm looking out my window right now, I see plenty of it. And I've been out there pretty much all day, and you're getting the blue light when you're supposed to get it. It's not that it's bad all the time. It's just that it's bad at certain times of the day. It's like you said, you don't want to tell your body to be awake, watching Netflix when it's 10 p.m. You want to be resetting that. It is very challenging to get people to turn off their devices. What things help you? Because it's like, seriously, if any like lifestyle thing I try to get people to do, that's probably up there with one of the very hardest.
Yeah, it is. It is really hard. I think first and foremost, if people realized what the impact of that was actually doing on their sleep and tested it and felt a difference, they would be more motivated to actually shut it down. But until it becomes somebody's experience, I found it's very hard for people to unplug. I mean, Netflix is like the number one thing that's keeping people from getting enough sleep. It's and these devices and the social media apps, I mean, they're all designed to be addicting, and it's hard. It really is. You have to be like so disciplined to not get sucked in to watching another episode that leads you into watching another one, which then, next thing you know, it's 12 o'clock at night and you got to get up at 6. And it's like, oh man. So really at the end of the day, I think it's about having a desire to experience something different and then really trying it on and seeing if it does make a difference. And if it does, and it makes a big enough difference, I think people would adhere to like shutting it down, having a bedtime routine, making sure they're more disciplined around it, maybe investing in some blue light blocking glasses or, some of the apps that are out there like Flux or Iris to help filter out some of that blue light. But at the end of the day, there has to be a desire, and there has to be some education around, why it's important.
That's such a great tip, man. I think so much of this is just for people to try, and if they like it, then great, do it. If not, then don't. Like, don't waste your time on it. Damn you, Netflix, for Schitt's Creek, and damn the NHL playoffs, and hopefully your Tampa Bay Lightning, since you live so close to them. They're both keeping me up at night. Schitt's Creek's just too good not to binge. Like, damn it.
It's tough. I mean, it really is. I'll tell you what, it's like, it really is. But the thing is, if you're gonna do it, put some blue light blocking glasses on, or, dim the light on your TV. Just do these little things. I mean, every little bit you do has an impact, over time. So I think it's just these little small things we do consistently that really make the difference. And you got to be open to experimenting. And again, you got to have a desire to improve.
I love that. I'm glad you mentioned blue light blocking glasses. That's another one that will elicit a strange look from your partner the day you whip those out. Is there a particular type or brand that you look for, or pretty much anything that's kind of that reddish hue that cuts out the blue light from the screen?
Yeah, there's a ton of different companies. Dave Asprey has a really good one, True Dark. They're more on the premium side. There's Raw Optics, which I like. I learned about that from Ben Greenfield. And but yeah, I mean, the quality of the lens is definitely like quality matters. You can go on to Amazon, and order. There's a million different blue light blocking glasses that you can order. And certain companies, do things the right way, and other companies just ship a bunch of stuff from China that maybe doesn't even work. So I would say, yeah, it is worth, investing in a more premium brand that has the lenses that actually do filter out the light. But at the end of the day, do what your budget allows and see if it helps.
That's great. Great advice. If we go back to supplements, I know a lot of people take magnesium at night. Are you into that at all?
Yeah, I mean, most people are deficient in magnesium. I think it's like 80 to 90% of people are just deficient in it because it's not in our soil. So magnesium is incredible for relaxing the mind and body, and it's definitely shown to improve sleep. And so there's a lot of supplements out there. Some of the more popular ones like Calm, their BioOptimizers makes a really good magnesium supplement that has a bunch of different types of magnesium that makes it more bioavailable. But I just spray it on my body. There's a great company out by you in Salt Lake, Ancient Minerals, I believe. And they have a great magnesium spray. Ease is another one, is a magnesium spray. The body actually can absorb magnesium through the skin. So, but some brands are a little bit itchy. So some people might prefer to take it orally, but it's just good to take regardless of if you're trying to improve your sleep, because chances are if you went and got a blood test, you would be deficient.
Yeah. Interesting idea with the spray. I've been using a magnesium deodorant that I really like. So that's a really great idea. Any other supplements that you recommend for people at night?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's really about experimenting. So depending on, there's so many things out there like kava, CBD, there's, 5-HTP, L-theanine, GABA. There's so much out there. And at the end of the day, I think most people take these supplements and they use them as Band-Aids. Like I've literally tried, countless types of supplements and brands to see if it increases sleep quality, but it never does it. Like a supplement isn't going to really make the difference. It'll supplement a healthy lifestyle. But it's not going to really fix or make your sleep that much better. That's just the truth. Yeah. So it's like, that's like maybe a 2% shift. The other things like the behavioral change, the psychological changes make such a bigger difference when we're talking about quality of sleep. But there are a lot of good things out there. The one that I would say that's pretty fun to talk about that is very popular right now for good reason is CBD. And there is some pretty cool research on how CBD not only obviously helps our health, pain management, but helps us get to sleep and can help improve sleep quality. So, but again, it depends on the quality of supplement. And that's really where it gets tricky for people. There's so much marketing out there with supplements that are just not quality. And if you're taking something that's not quality, it's not going to have an effect. But if you get a high quality CBD, preferably if it has a little bit of THC in there to kind of help shuttle in the CBD, activate the endocannabinoid system, it can be very helpful for relaxing the mind and body and inducing sleep.
That's great. Have to look into that. That's awesome. Yeah, I just think we're just so used to like throttling our health in a downward spiral and expecting the medical system to throw some pills at us and have that improve everything when we're not willing to do the work, the workouts, the proper nutrition, the mindfulness, the meditation, things like that. We want a quick fix. Speaking of pills, I have to ask you about Ambien. That seems to be one that's prescribed quite a bit. What does Ambien even do to help people sleep?
Oh my gosh, Ambien, don't get me started. That is probably, and here's the thing, let me just disclaimer, I'm not anti-medication whatsoever. There's a time and place for medication, but Ambien a side effect of Ambien is actually insomnia. I mean, if you look, I mean, it's insane. It's insane. If you look at the side effects of Ambien, it's like your jaw will drop. And Ambien's linked to so many increase in cancer. People. I got to tell you a story about Ambien. I was on the phone with someone, and again, I speak to people literally all over the world every single day who have massive sleep issues. And I'll never forget this conversation with this one gentleman. He was looking for support, and we're doing the intake, and I'm learning more about what's going on with him. And he tells me this story. He went to sleep in his bed, and he woke up in jail. And he didn't remember anything in between. So what happened was because he was sleeping so bad, and he was getting in fights with his wife. His wife left, and And she was the one that when he would take Ambien, she would kind of like walk him back to the bed, make sure he didn't do anything crazy. And so his wife wasn't in the house. He took Ambien. He actually got in his car, drove down the street, was his eyes were open. He was stopped at a stoplight and he was just sitting there, and a cop eventually came up. He got arrested for a DWI. And when they did the blood test, he was telling him, listen, I wasn't drinking. I took Ambien. He didn't remember anything. He didn't remember anything. So, I mean, so the side effects of these drugs are really strong. And there's a lot. And again, I'm not giving medical advice here, but there's a lot of other things that you can do, and a lot better sleep medications than I think Ambien, and hopefully Ambien. Yeah, it's not good. They're sedatives. It's like, if you look at it like this, if you drank a handle of vodka, right, and you passed out on the floor because you're that drunk, and we took you to sleep lab and we hooked you all up, you wouldn't be sleeping. You're knocked out.
Wow.
And that's pretty much what a lot of these sedative drugs do, is they knock you out. It's not real sleep. That's why you wake up and you still feel groggy, and you wake up and you feel hungover, is because you're not actually sleeping. It's literally like knocking you out.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's crazy. What a great story. I have one from around here. I heard this directly. This lady was driving back from a friend's house, I want to say. She had kids in the car, took Ambien. I want to say she had a glass of red wine. So of course she gets pulled over. Cop kind of realizes like what the situation is like, okay, look, just you're a few blocks away. Get home. Just focus. Get home. I'm not going to arrest you. Just go home. She pulls out onto the road, does some funky turn. The cop rearrests her and is like, okay, you're coming with me. Like, that's insane.
Yep. Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, there's all kinds of, if you go on the internet, there's all kinds of crazy, like sleepwalking stories of people doing crazy things on Ambien, like eating their entire fridge and not remembering anything, like just, again, sleep driving, all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's, again, I'm not anti-medication. I think there's a time and a place for it, but most cases, people rely on the medication way too long, and they're taking too much of it, and they're taking the wrong medication. So yeah, it's crazy.
Wow, that's crazy. So those are some good stories. I would love to hear from you some of your favorite stories. You mentioned you work with people all over the world. Just curious, a few stories that come to mind. They don't need to be, huge ones, maybe something more recent. What are some of your favorite stories of people that improve their lives through improving their sleep?
Yeah, so the one that first comes to mind is our client Peg. And this is a woman that suffered from insomnia, chronic insomnia, for literally her entire life. Like, she told me she couldn't remember a time when she actually slept well. And she, like most people, was bouncing from medication to medication. They would work for a little bit, then they'd stop working. And it got so bad that she was losing her memory because of a lack of sleep, and also because of the side effects of what she was taking. And so when we were actually able to work with her and address the root cause of what was going on with her over the course of several months, she was able to restore her natural sleep. Her memory came back, and she got her life back. I mean, she literally, it was literally life changing for this woman. And she, I think she was in her 60s when we helped her. And so she couldn't even work. She was at a place where she was so tired. And she felt so drugged that, she was a hairdresser. And she couldn't remember the names of her clients. She couldn't hold her scissors. It was bad. And she was at a place where she felt hopeless. Like, she thought she had tried everything, and we were able to, using our methods and our support, we were able to help her restore her natural sleep. She's not on any medication. She's still sleeping amazing. And so that's one of, I love sharing that story, because there's so many people like her. I mean, a lot of people think that their sleep issues are a life sentence, and they're not. They're not. It's just, you don't have the proper support and tools. And so, yeah, I mean, that always, I mean, we love stories like that, right? It's somebody that goes from really such a dark place and then comes to the other side, and things are just so much better. But that's one example of probably, that's one of my favorite stories. But I actually have a bunch of stories like that of clients that have thought they've tried everything. And again, we work with people that are like really have really bad insomnia. Like these people are hurting, like it's affecting their relationships, it's affecting their careers, it's affecting their health. And so there's a lot of stories we have even on our website around people like that were able to restore their natural sleep cycles and get back to living.
Man, that's so cool. So cool to be a part of somebody who could turn their life around and get their life back. That's just amazing. You wrote the best-selling book, The Sleep Advantage, Optimize Your Night to Win Your Day. When did you decide that you wanted to put all of this down on paper and actually write a book?
It was really about a year ago. So when the pandemic was hit, I was like, hey, I had a hunch that people were going to have more of a challenge sleeping. And so I really just said, hey, let me put together a step-by-step guide to help people sleep better. And it's something that was simple that just gave people what they need, nothing more, without all the fluff. And yeah, so I decided, hey, let me get this out there. I felt like it was something the world could use to help people. And I'm actually more proud of the audiobook version of this, where I read it. And but yeah, I've been getting great feedback on it, and people have been telling me how much it's helped them. And so it's been a fun process to share that with the world.
That's great. Did you enjoy recording your voice for the audiobook?
Much more than writing. I'm more of a speaker. I'm not really a writer. And so for me, just being able to speak it and sort of add some flair into it was a lot of fun. And yeah, I've been getting really good feedback on that as well. So that's
awesome.
Exciting.
That's great. Tell us a little bit about the Sleep Science Academy. How do you work with people now?
Yeah, so we actually, over the course of 8 weeks, it's a holistic approach based in science. So there's really 3 phases that we take people through. It's our mind phase, body phase, and environment phase. So we start at the mind. We help people get their minds out of the way of their bodies so that their body can do what it's designed to do, which is sleep. And that's sort of phase 1. Phase 2 is then resetting what we call the sleep system, and 2 systems in the body that control sleep. It's circadian rhythm and sleep pressure. So we implement certain techniques to increase sleep pressure and reset the circadian rhythm. And then the last phase is the sleep environment phase. And that's really what people think of as like traditional sleep hygienes, your habits, your rituals around sleep itself. And those are really great for increasing sleep quality, but they don't solve insomnia. So phase 1 and 2 is really to help people, increase the quality of their quantity of sleep and decrease the anxiety about sleep. And then phase 3 is make sure those hours that they're sleeping are the best hours that they could be. And so it's a hands-on approach, and we have a team of coaches that work with our clients. And it's really, we like to get in the weeds with people and really hold their hand step by step through a process for them to have what we call sleep transformation.
That's great. That's such a cool thing to be able to work with people on. You also launched a podcast this last year, and I really love the format. And it sounds like these are coming from videos that you're putting onto audio. Is that correct?
Yeah. So I appreciate the feedback. That's definitely something new. I'm just kind of experimenting with. I put a lot of content out on YouTube, and someone said, hey, why don't you just repurpose this into a podcast? They might, people love podcasts. I said, oh yeah, okay, let's do it. So we're seeing how that goes, but I appreciate the positive feedback and the shout out on it.
Yeah, dude, don't stop doing them. I love them. As somebody who walks around all over the place, like I can't watch a ton of videos, and so to get the audio version of it is great. And they're not overly lengthy. It's just you presenting an idea and a topic, and it's really good. It's helpful. I've really enjoyed them.
Man, thank you so much. That means a lot. I appreciate the feedback. That's actually the first feedback I've gotten on that experiment. So I'll keep it up. I appreciate it.
I will be sure to give you a rating and review as well. But yeah, definitely has been very helpful for me just to get a few tidbits, even if it's just a 5 to 10 minute little audio file. I think it's great. Keep it up. We would love to continue listening to it. It's great.
Amazing. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'm curious to hear what components make up your life. Like, what are some of the lifestyle practices that you keep and leverage in your life, not only for, better sleep, but also better energy and a rich and fulfilled life?
I love this question, and I really appreciate you asking. I do a lot, a lot more than most people. So so for those people that are listening might think it's a bit extreme, but this has been literally over a decade of me testing and experimenting what works for me. So first and foremost, obviously I focus on my sleep. I measure and track my sleep. I do things to make sure that my sleep is deep and it's restful. And not every night is deep and restful, and it's totally okay and normal. Like, I think people have this idea that, there's like perfect sleep, that like somebody, if you focus on it, every night's going to be amazing. It's not the case.
And Devin's achieving it as a sleep expert, and we're down here suffering.
No, it's not actually. Like, it really, I do have nights where, I wake up or I don't get great sleep. But it's just, it's an ongoing thing that you need to focus on and experiment with. For the most part, my sleep is super dialed in. And I'm always constantly testing things to see if I can dial it even more. But I like cold exposure. So I do have a converted cold, it's a cold plunge, but it's actually a refrigerator in my living room. It's a bit extreme.
Amazing.
Yeah. So I don't know how I convinced my wife to allow me to put that in the living room, but I got one in the living room. So in my morning, I wake up, I have a morning routine where I usually wake up, down a big glass of water. I go for a quick bike ride, get some sun on my skin. I come back. I do a 20-minute meditation using Sam Harris's Waking Up app, which is incredible. For those of you that aren't consistent meditators, it's an amazing app. And then I usually jump in the cold plunge for about 5 to 10 minutes, hot shower, and then I start my day. And so that's like my morning sort of routine as of now. And then throughout the day, I make sure that I create space to take breaks. I have a rebounder that I go out and jump on. I'm blessed to live a block from the beach, so sometimes I'll run to the beach, jump in the ocean, in between meetings and appointments. And I really I honor rest and rhythm throughout my day, so that at night it's not such a heavy lift for me to wind down. I think that's a big mistake most people don't realize is a great night of sleep actually happens as soon as you wake up. And what you do throughout the entire day affects your ability to get to sleep at night. So having these little rituals, these transitions, these little breaks, creating space in your day for play and, relaxation as you work, I think is really, really powerful and really important. So I'm a pretty good most of the time at honoring that. Again, it's not about perfection, just about progress. I'm a human too. And then I eat a really good diet. I eat mostly plant-based. I do take some supplements, but at the end of the day, I try not to take myself too serious. I try to just be present, and every day is an opportunity to learn and grow. And I'm grateful for my life. So
that's awesome. Wow. Yeah. That's awesome. What a fun life to live. And it's so funny that you mentioned, making your day help your night. I was thinking that, earlier you could have just as easily called your book, The Sleep Advantage, Optimize Your Day to Win Your Night. So important.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. It is, we can't separate the night from the day or the day from the night, right? Everything has its opposites, the polarity. And often I think times we try to separate those. We try to separate like the mind from the body, right? You can't separate the mind from the body.
Right.
And addressing something purely on the physical level isn't going to be as powerful as addressing it on the mental and the physical level. Yeah. And so, so I think everyone is at a different level of, prioritizing their health. For me, my health is number one. And because I know I can't serve my family, I can't serve my clients. I can't be present if I'm not taking care of myself. So I really do protect and prioritize my health so that I can show up for the people I care about.
I love that. That's very beautifully said. We want to learn real quick before we let you go about 3-2-1 sleep. I think this concept is amazing and something that I am definitely going to be stealing and using with my clients.
Oh, please do, because I stole it from somebody else.
That's what we're all doing.
I actually did. So yeah, I mean, I don't like to say stealing. It's more like borrowing.
There we go. We'll give it back.
Yeah. So 3-2-1 sleep is just an easy way of prioritizing your sleep. So 3 hours before you like to be asleep, that means no more food. So stop eating. The reason for that is because when we eat too close to bedtime, it gets in the way of that deep delta sleep that we talked about in the beginning of the conversation. So 3 hours before bed, no more food. 2 hours before bed, no more work. So this means turning off the computer, not checking the phone. It just means starting to check out, essentially. And then 1 hour before bed, no more screens, and start the bedtime rituals. It means like a wind down routine. So maybe it's a hot bath. Maybe it's making love to your partner. Maybe it's reading a book. Maybe it's stretching. Maybe it's going, for a light, walk. Something that's going to allow your body to transition from the day into the night. So that's it. 3, 2, 1, sleep.
So easy. I love it. That's great. This has been such a fun conversation. I've been looking forward to this for a very long time. We've covered a lot of different things. Have to ask you if there was just one simple thing that somebody could take away from this besides the 3, 2, 1. Is there one last tip you'd like to leave with the listener?
Yeah, I would say if you don't have a consistent practice to train your mind, whether that's mindfulness meditation or some type of quiet space in your day, it's so simple and it's so powerful when you consistently make the space to have some time for yourself, whether that's walking in nature, whether that's, sitting down on the mat, meditating, or whatever that is for you. I think as a society, we just are so focused on doing, and we really need to shift more towards being. And so it's not only going to impact your sleep, but it's just going to impact every aspect of your life. So that's what I would say.
I love it. Let's end it on that note. Where can people go to find you and your work?
So sleepscienceacademy.com. On social, we're Devin Burke Wellness on Instagram and YouTube. And then devinburke.com. So I have a couple of different things going on, but Sleep Science Academy for those people that are interested in solving their sleep. And then for people that are interested in learning more about, the content, YouTube is a great place, and just Devin Burke Wellness.
That's great. We'll link to all of that in the show notes. Devin Burke, author of The Sleep Advantage. What a fun conversation. For so many of the questions that I asked, there wasn't one clear-cut answer, but you also weren't avoiding the questions. Like, you were answering in a way that makes sleeping more accessible and easy for people to improve, and so many different techniques, and there's not one way to do things, and you do such a great job communicating that. We're so grateful for you and for your work and everything that you've discovered, and for taking the time to be on our show today. We really appreciate you and everything that you've done, so thank you very much.
Oh, Casey, pleasure. My pleasure. Really enjoyed the conversation, and thank you for hosting a podcast and allowing me to get the message out.
Absolutely. Keep yours going. Don't stop.
Will do.
Awesome.
Absolutely. I won't.
Awesome. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.